The ideals of Pride reflect the diversity and inclusiveness that makes Toronto one of the world's great cities. But if Pride chooses to undermine those values by involvement with bigoted speech and groups, that choice has consequences. Just like Pride, the city also has rights, including the right not to be associated with that bigotry. Queers Against Israeli Apartheid's only apparent goal is to vilify and delegitimize Israel, a pluralistic democracy which has, by far, the best human rights record in this region, and is the only country in the Middle East that reflects Western values and respects gay rights, whereas being openly gay in places like Gaza, Iran, or Yemen is a more reliable method of suicide than a visit to Dr. Kevorkian. Now, it could be a coincidence that the one country they've chosen to unfairly attack just happens to be the only Jewish state. But these facts suggest that Queers Against Israeli Apartheid is anti-Semitic, and having Jewish members does not preclude that. Whether their hateful message technically violates the city's anti-discrimination policy, I'd suggest is immaterial. As elected representatives, you have the right to determine what receives city funding and under what circumstances. The real question is, should tax funds subsidize a platform for a divisive message of bigotry a great many Torontonians find offensive and deplorable? With respect, your duty is not to a policy, but to your constituents who have entrusted these types of decisions to you. Pride brings a tremendous economic benefit to Toronto, but if that's the case, why can't they secure more sponsors? We know the answer. It's because they're embarrassed to be associated with Queers Against Israeli Apartheid. But this isn't just about economics. It's about principle. Council wouldn't fund a Ku Klux Klan rally, no matter how much money it generated, nor should it fund a platform for Queers Against Israeli Apartheid or any such group. Keep in mind, this is not a free speech dispute, and anyone who tells you it is simply lying. They already have free speech. What they want is subsidized speech, and for us to pay for it with city cash and services. Something you may not be aware of is that the local anti-Israel movement recently declared Canada also as an apartheid country. They publicly announced it at this year's Israeli Apartheid Week Hate Fest at U of T. According to them, Canada remains a genocidal, colonialist, imperialist country perpetrating apartheid on its native population, which can only be rectified through a process of decolonization. That's their language. Of course, they haven't gone so far as to call for boycott, sanctions, and divestment from Canada as they have with Israel, because if that actually happened, it might affect their academic grants and free public services. The anti-Israel movement may be made up of hypocrites, but they also know what side of the bread their butter's on. Obviously, no reasonable, intelligent person would characterize Canada or Israel as an apartheid country, but that's part of an ideological narrative that these people want you to validate with our tax dollars. In closing, the issue before you is not one of subtlety or finesse regarding the interpretation of the city manager's report. This is a straightforward question of right or wrong. As members of council, you've been entrusted by taxpayers with the duty of allocating our scant resources wisely. So the question remains, will you give tax funds to a platform that promotes hatred and subversion of the basic principles this country was founded on? Or are you going to say no? We're not going to be your dupes. We'll fund a prize that's about inclusion and diversity, but the taxpayers of Toronto won't pay 1 cent to subsidize a message of bigotry. That's not deprivation of free speech, that's not censorship. If Pride's organizers wish to include an extremist fanatical group, that's their right, but if they want to spread that venom, let them pay for it themselves. That's really what this boils down to, and I'm confident that most of you, hopefully all of you, will make the decision that reflects the values that Torontonians expect from their elected representatives. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.